Hello everybody, my name is Zen and welcome to my impressions for Vagante, which is Italian for wandering or wanderer. So if you ever wanted to know, one, how to pronounce the name of this game, and two, what it meant, well, there you go, Vagante. Now, with that out of the way, I'm going to give you my impressions on approximately the first 3 hours of the game. I've put about that much time into it, but you're only going to be seeing footage in the background from the first hour because there is a lot of stuff that I don't want to spoil. The game has a lot of stuff that you need to just learn on your own. That's the kind of game it is. It's a roguelike adventure game, 2D adventure game, where you're kind of going through these dungeons, and it's very similar to Spelunky or Binding of Isaac, or even has, influences from like Hades. And even stuff like Undermine. So there's a bunch of really cool stuff in this game from all of those games. The thread is tied between them all, and in really good ways. If too long didn't watch the entire video, is that I really enjoyed this game. I think it's super cool. I've been playing on Nintendo Switch, and honestly, that would be my preferred way to play this game. It has both local and online co-op, and being able to play locally on the Switch is a nice little feature, but on top of that, it runs great on the Switch, so why not have it on a thing that I could take with me everywhere as well, right? But it is also available on PlayStation, on Xbox, and of course on PC. But again, this is what you're seeing in the background is from my Nintendo Switch. A quick note on that before we dive into what the gameplay is like and how it all works is that this game in particular actually looks pretty good on the OLED Switch. So I do recommend it if you have one of those. Otherwise, I noticed that the game is kind of dark, but that's intentional on their part. But with the OLED, it just kind of makes everything pop a little bit better, and you're able to see fairly well on that display. So let's dive in and talk about this game. First off, there are three, I would call them main classes that you can pick from. You have the rogue, the knight, and the mage. They all are basically exactly what you would expect. The rogue is going to use daggers and bows, and is very, you can sneak around, but it's very mobile. You could do like a dodge roll and stuff, which is really handy. With the knight, you're looking at having big sword powers and being able to use holy abilities and just being able to protect yourself a little bit better. But with the mage, you're having, magical abilities. You can enchant your stuff through the use of your magic. And you also can unlock the ability to see what all of the potions are automatically. They're all identified, which is important, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But the thing with this is you do gain experience as you go throughout the different levels. When you die, you start over. So very Spelunky in a lot of senses there. But, when you start over, you're taking all of the knowledge that you had with you from before with you into your next run. Very, standard roguelike or roguelite type experiences here. But in particular, with the knowledge of the levels, is things like how certain traps work in each of the areas. There's 4 different types of areas that you'll explore through. I've made it up to 2 of them. So they seem pretty varied from when you get into the second one, and that's really nice. And that comes with a whole set of other traps and whatnot. But the idea is, you're progressing through a level, and maybe you'll find out that if you land on spikes, it'll one-shot you. And you know what? I got killed by spikes a lot. Not because I messed up or the game was punishing me. It was because I just forgot, or I didn't take a moment to look at where I was jumping and I happened to land on spikes, or I wasn't watching where I was stepping and I hit a pressure plate that dropped a rock on me and killed me. But the same pressure plates you can use against your enemies and have them walk over and have them drop a rock on. So the things that are in the levels can work for you just as much as they can work against you. And it requires you being disciplined enough with your own gameplay to play well and to pay attention. There's also a ton of secrets as well that you can find, including some kind of secret classes. I barely touched on that in my gameplay, but it does seem like you can combine certain things to come up with in between classes, for example. And all of that unlockable stuff can be tracked within a menu in the game, which is pretty cool. But the thing behind it is your knowledge of these items that you're picking up, like specific potions. It might just say like, hey, this is a blue potion. And you're like, what does that mean? Or like a blue elixir. You're like, I don't understand what that is. And then you go and use it. And then you realize, oh, okay, it reveals the whole map for this particular level. And now you can kind of go look around, and there's like a mini map that you can look at and be able to see the different secret area and whatnot. But if you get the blue one, oh, look, you use it. It says when you pick it up, this is unidentified. You don't know what it does. And then you use it and it's like, oh, hey, it reveals the map. But when you die, that's gone. So you have to track it either by writing that stuff down or just with your own memory of what specific things do. And I like that because it is the people who really want to get into this game and be like, what does this particular item do? And how do I make it affect me well? Like, here's an enchanted scroll that I'm going to use on an item, but I have no idea what it's going to do to my item. Is it going to just make it garbage, or is it going to make it good? You have to figure these things out as you play through the game, and that knowledge as you progress and remember things, potentially, hopefully. Unlike me, I continually forget what certain things do, and I'm like, crap, this is the one that does that thing, right? And then I use it, I'm like, nope. I simply just wasted a potion that I could have used in a minute's time that would have actually healed me to full, rather than me using it when I have like 1 HP missing. So yeah, there's a bunch of items that you have to learn what they do. Things are randomized stat-wise in cool ways, you know. Specific items that you can pick up, armor, weapons, stuff like that, they will generally have very similar effects per run. So if you die and you go back and you find a similar item, it's gonna behave in a similar fashion to the previous one that you found, but it might have, you know, a range of different stats on it. It might do more damage, or the damage that it does is now fire damage as opposed to like a poison damage. So it's kind of cool that you have some variability in it, because it creates a lot more, you know, playthrough opportunities, and especially between the 3 classes, because now suddenly spells become a much more important thing if you really want to use them. If you're playing a mage, or if you're playing a rogue, like, oh man, yes, I got a crossbow. Yes, I'm going to use the crossbow because it's really cool. You know, the difference between a bow and a crossbow in this game is with the bow, you hold the button and it draws the string, and you have to aim it and then fire. It's very skill-based in that regard, a lot more than I thought it might be. But then if you get the crossbow, when you're holding it, it's setting the bolt into the crossbow, and then when you fire the next time, it just like launches it. So you don't actually have to wait for the pullback. You just gotta fire it, and it auto aims in a cool way too. So it makes it usable in ways that you don't otherwise get with the bow. So there's reasons to use one or the other, and if you're playing a rogue, you know, that bow might be more important to you than if you're playing a knight or a mage. So I like the variability between all the different classes. I like the variability between all the different items, and picking up an item may change what you put your skill points into, because, you know, newsflash, when you die, you lose all the progress that you made on that character. So now you have to go and put skill points in. But dying isn't always permanent in the ways that you might hope that are not, but you do essentially fill a bar every time you die and you make progress, and it creates some lasting progress for yourself as opposed to just having to completely restart. But it does involve a bit of progress in order to fill that bar a lot faster. The only way that I can actually describe this in a way that might sound very familiar is if you've ever played like Don't Starve, not Don't Starve together, because you basically have all the characters unlocked when you do that. But in normal Don't Starve, you start off with like Wilson, and I think Willow, I don't even remember. I think you might just start with Wilson, and when you progress, depending on how far you get in like your first playthrough of Don't Starve, when you die, every day that you manage to complete and survive on counts to your next character, and it's like a counter that's unlocking different characters as you go. So it's similar in this regard. The more you progress, the more that bar will fill up, and that's good because it becomes harder and harder to fill up. Obviously, as it fills up, it's like an experience bar. It grows in the amount of points that it needs to fill up the next time. So getting further into the game is definitely better. But we're approximately 10 minutes into this video, and I've been just saying my praises. I think it's really fun. I think it's cool. I love the art style. The sound is actually really peaceful in weird ways. That's the only way I could put it. Like, it's a brutal game sometimes, but you just feel so relaxed when you're playing it. And that's nice for playing on the Switch for sure. But I don't like that it does have so much brutality in it. Spelunky is an example of a game like this where you really just need to learn what is a trap and what isn't. And if you don't do that quick enough, you're going to find yourself dying rapidly to stupid crap. And it can be really frustrating when you get far enough into a run and then you suddenly die. And this is the same thing with Vagante, is you can get fairly far into the first area and then be fighting a boss character. I'm not going to give away any of the different stuff that you come across in the game, but you could be, getting pretty far and that you're going to end up facing like a boss, and you get into that room and you start fighting them and you kill them and you're like, yes, I did it. And you pick up their key and you're like, there's a chest over there. I'm going to go unlock that chest and get some fat loot. And then we're going to move on from this area and move on to the second one. And then I'm speaking from experience here. And then you go over to the chest and you open it up and you pick up all your loot, and you're so excited that you forget that there's a single spike trap below you, and when you drop down, it kills you instantly. That is not fun, and it is what made me stop playing at one point. I was just like, all right, I can't. I'm done. I need to stop playing this. I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go paint miniatures or something. It was just like, I was so frustrated at the fact that happened. There's also some weird control things that my brain wasn't working with the controls to begin with. And like, I went and accidentally attacked certain things. Like, there's this little fairy princess that you can find and save. And I accidentally killed her, and a giant worm spawned, and I needed to kill that. And I did kill that. And then I ran into a spike trap right after. Can you tell I'm a little frustrated about that? Because that happens more often than not with me. Which it shouldn't, but it does. Or here's another good one. The shopkeeper, because there's a shopkeeper that, of course, you could buy items from. If you happen to hit the wrong button, I should say this might be specific to the Nintendo Switch, where the control scheme just didn't vibe with me to begin with. I don't know, maybe it's all my years of using the Xbox controller and just expecting certain buttons to be the ones, but I have a hard time switching between the Xbox controller and the Nintendo Switch controls. And I know plenty of people do, and we need like a universal control system for all of these different systems. But my point is, I went to go purchase from the shopkeeper, and I accidentally hit him, and he just chased me down and beat the crap out of me. And I was just like, ah. And I was pretty far into a run. And this happens more often than not. And if you're not interested in a game that is going to be tough but fair, but also kind of brutal in some regard, then this may not be the game for you. But if you're looking for a game that, has a lot of like Undermine vibes or Spelunky vibes, or, basically any 2D platformer in the last like 8 years that's an indie game vibe, then maybe the game is for you if you're into that, but maybe it's not if you don't like that kind of stuff. And that's totally fine, because it's not like it's this big AAA experience that, that everybody's going to be talking about. It's just this cool little tiny game that is freaking fantastic in 90% of the regards that I have for it, minus the random traps that I keep dying to out of my own stupidity. But that's not necessarily the game's fault, but it is because I put them there. But it's also not his fault. I need to play better. And that's the mean part about it, right? Like, I can only blame myself for dying to stupid crap like that, because I had learned up to that point what certain things do. Aside from like the random control issues that I was having, it's my fault, but it's annoying still when I die to stuff like that. because I'm like, well, why did it generate a stupid trap right below the chest? Anyways, I'm not gonna harp on that any longer. I think this is a great game. If you look at it and you're like, I want to try this, then you already know that you're going to enjoy it. And you will enjoy it, by the way. If you look at this and you go, this looks cool. And if you're like, I'm going to pass, then you probably should, because otherwise you might end up breaking a Nintendo Switch in half. Not that I've done that, but I could see how that might be a thing that certain people would do. Again, you can pick it up on PlayStation, on Xbox, on PC, and of course on Nintendo Switch. And it's not a expensive investment, so it's also a pretty cool game if you just want to dive in and check it out for, an afternoon. My other advice would be to be careful, because this is also the kind of game that you're going to put 1,000 hours into if you really get into it. So if you have a life and you want to continue to have a life, maybe, consider just putting a time limit on how much game time you could put into this game at any given point. With all that being said, thank you for watching, and we shall see you all next time.